Hello and welcome back to Pandemic Playground with Dave. So for those who've seen the Apex Survival preview, I'm also known as the Flying Zebra. For now. So Apex Survival is here and live, and that's why we got this barbecue pit going. So of course, with that said, let's get started with what we get in Apex Survival Update and the DLC pack. And also there's a giveaway, so stay tuned. Alright, so before we go through everything in terms of food and farming, environmental hazards, and all that stuff, which I'm gonna kind of quickly go through because you could see a lot of that happening in the previews that have been released by fellow Space Engineers content creators. So let's start with the new stuff first that's part of the update. Number one is going to be these rovers. So these rovers now replace the original drop pods. So of course, previously we would have drop pods such as this for most planets. And we have the moon drop pod with the wheels and a cockpit, which didn't really differ too much in this case. But we now have this nifty little rover that's been updated where the battery's on the bottom. You get a spare tire in the back, bottom, a survival kit in the back. And you're going to have like a small air vent. You also have an oxygen tank here and a hydrogen tank towards the back. One of the main differences is that it doesn't supply bottles, but it does supply your pistol S10 with the ammo, some meal packs that's Kelp Crisp to get you started, and a GPS location. It does also give you ore detector to get you started in finding ore, and there's also gyroscope, which is really helpful. One thing, it doesn't have an O2H2 generator, so it's not about just gathering ice anymore in this case. So now you have to get an O2H2 generator and build it onto this somehow. And eventually, but technically you don't need it. You have an air vent for oxygen if you're in a planet that has air or atmosphere, but it's a nifty little rover and it's pretty cool. It does have a bit of a ladder system here, which technically you could hop on top of and kind of co-op with somebody, but you definitely don't really stay on, so gotta be careful of that. But yeah, nifty little rover. So your starting selections are now rovers instead of these pods. There's still the spaceship or spaceship pod that's left for space exploration. In terms of new blocks as well, we have these things here. So we have a food processor, which we've seen in the previews prior. And you'll see there's a port in the back, there's a port on the top, and there's a port on the bottom. So this is large grid only. And I think most of Apex Survival is going to be large grid. There are some small grids, but not too much. So you get a nice little food processor here to help us make these meal packs. And in here you see the foils that keep the packets nice and neat and fresh for you. And you'll see here, these are probably the processing pieces. All right, so that's your sabroid, your fruit, mushroom, vegetables, meat, wheat. That's algae, not fire. And then your forks and knives for whatever reasons. I guess that's just excess, if anything. And then you have this kind of like mixer, which looks pretty cool in a way. You can see spin on here. So I'm pretty sure it blends all the food into this little filter system here. And has a little bit of just a straight up warning text instead of some kind of sign. But it'll blend it up. And I guess it'll kind of get all the meal packs from here. And it puts it down into this conveyor belt down here, potentially. That's my assumption. There's no animation to it. I wish there was, but it's a neat little thing here. And then you could probably grab it from this dispenser right over here. So it should actually come down from here. Should be a hole here that dispenses in here, I believe. Or even down here. Either one. All right, so the food processor, as you get into here, you got to go to production. You get to cook mammal meat, which is coming from wolves, insect meat, which comes from sabroid, and then you have things like Kelp Crisp, which is algae, fruit bars, garden slaw, and a variety of different foods here. And of course, the greatest quest for steak dinner is available. So it kind of works like an assembler, basically, right? So if you got your algae, you have 4 algae. Looks like you need 4 algae for this. You queue it up and it produces your meal pack. What you could also do with the food processor is grab your vegetables, fruits, grain, mushrooms, and turn it into seed packets so then you can plant them at the farm plot, which we'll talk about in a sec. So, of course, the food processor becomes very important with Apex Survival because it does the various things here, make food for you, and create seeds. And now the algae farm works very much like the oxygen farm, where it soaks in the sun to produce algae. Well, instead of oxygen in this case. So as you see here, lots of greenery kind of growing inside the tanks. And guess what? More bubbles in this update. And the port, of course, is on the bottom. Again, very much like the oxygen farm. But you'll see the levels here, how efficient it is, what the progress is, what's the next output. So this is 82% current progress. Next output is 7 minutes, which it means that it's going to drop algae in the algae farm here. And that way, once you have 4 of them, grab that, put it into your processor here, and you can make your kelp crisp. But also, the survival kit can help you produce kelp crisp as well. So when you're getting started, you don't necessarily need a food processor on the get-go, but you do need to get some algae to get some food in terms of kelp crisp. So once it produces algae, it'll look like these little vials here, which if I throw on the ground, that's kind of what it looks like. Kind of a smaller version of this, or just the top tank part of it at least. So that is your algae that you can grab from the algae farm. So the next free item is going to be this here. This is what I thought could have been a trash compactor like thing, organic compost item, but it's not. It is actually what we call, quote unquote, the water thing, or the irrigation system. So the irrigation system takes in ice so that you can turn it into water for your farm plots. So the irrigation system generally only has a few ports. So looking at it this way, on top has 2 and on the side has 1. If you have it plopped down like this, you only got the port here, here, and here to get some water irrigation system. Your best bet is to connect conveyors throughout or underneath a farm plot, because a farm plot, which we will discuss very, very soon, only has a port on the bottom. So you would ideally plop it in on top of the irrigation system or any conveyors that's connected to the irrigation system. Either one works fairly fine. But yes, you do need to throw in ice in order for it to turn it into water. So in this current system, we got 24.4k of ice. And that is basically turning all that into water and going into a farm plot. So our farm plot is going to be this item here. So it's not connected to anything right now, but basically you action key it on in terms of keyboard F, and then you have a seed and you hit plant. And then once it's ready to harvest, we hit harvest and grab the fully grown item. But since we're actually currently in Pertam, it's going to be a little bit rough for it to be planted because it definitely needs a lot of oxygen. So right now in Pertam is low O2, so that's not enough for the seed or for the vegetation to grow in this case. And plus, I don't have any water on here anyways, so that doesn't really work out. But unfortunately, all this is kind of manual, so you plant it this way. Click, get into it, click on the seed, plant. When it's ready to harvest, hit harvest. And then rinse and repeat. But of course, there is ways to do it where it's kind of automatic, and that's only to harvest. And that's going to be using a subgrid system like this, a piston with a collector. So we go through here, you'll see my growth progress is 82%, not completely done, good health. Water is high because all this is connected into the irrigation system over there. So once it's done, we'll bring down the piston and it should collect this automatically. But the only issue is that you do still have to click in and plant it. So there's that. All right, so the fruits are done. You see a growth process. We can hit harvest, but instead of harvesting by hand, we could get some kind of automation going with this piston. So we reverse this collector to come down, and I don't know why we had the piston so high. We could have just have it kind of low, and I think we could have it as low as possible and left it there, and it'll still collect it. So once it gets low enough, and boom, we get our fruits automatically like that. So I do wonder if it's able to collect it as it's growing. So if it's high enough, I would think so. But again, unfortunately, we do have to replant it by hand like so. So no automation on that just yet that we know of. So I'm also curious to see, let's see, is there an event controller that's going to tell the farm plot that it is done? No. Does it count as inventory is another question. No. Okay, so your best bet for now, I think, is to time the growth. So within a minute 10 or minute, probably it was a minute 30 or something like that for growth time, we just drop it down. Or I think you just leave it like this and collect it. It should be good enough, I think. You can have something static like that and collect, right? So in terms of farm plots, you get 4 different types of materials we mentioned before. So here you'll see vegetables down the line here. You get a bit of grain right over here. Mushrooms. And fruits. Alright, so with all that done so far, that is the free items that we're getting in the Apex Survival. If you get the Apex Survival DLC pack, you're going to get a lot of new items as well. And then first off, we have this. What is this? This is a half algae farm. So instead of a full blast algae farm like that, you got kind of a hybrid version of it, or half block version of it. It's still 3 blocks tall, but it's a slimmer version of that algae farm, which could be fairly useful. And it kind of absorbs the sun kind of the same way too. Efficiency wise, I'm not quite sure, but it probably is. Not sure if it cuts it in half or it doesn't produce as much algae. I'm not quite sure. I should really check that eventually. But you also get this, another half something, and that is the half oxygen farms. And these fit a lot better on the solar panels, especially the colorable ones. So now we have a way to really get them together like that and create a bit of farm for it. The only problem is that it does only have 1 port, so you got to really put in a good spot. I don't know how you're going to put multiple one of these, because then you have to put, I think, a bunch of conveyors and pipes and everything like that around it, but it's still pretty decent. So yeah, half oxygen farm. Just save some more space and half block version. All right, the next item we have is going to be type 2 drills, grinders, and welders. So these change a little bit in terms of look. Turning them on. That is the new drill system, a boring like drill system. Well, more of a scooper, not really boring, but this one is pretty cool. So look at the details of the drill. Basic ports on each side. You got a lot of little details in terms of like numberings and details here. Caution. And that says drill 0 or something like that. And it has the scooper for the drilling system. It acts the same as the regular drill, but I like that there's some hydraulics here. I wish it would be more animated, but that's probably more for space engineers too. And then you have your type A right here. I wonder if you can actually look at that barcode or scan that barcode. But that's your drill system, your grinder, 2 grinding disc wheels to grind down things, and I guess that's short for grind. Again, it's on these hydraulic pieces, which it would be cool if you see it actually move and suspend and do like some kind of suspension. And then the rest is the same decals and everything like that. So it's everything kind of still the same. Ports are all in the same spots and everything like that as well. And to activate this one, the drills are spinning both the same way, which it should be. I think this looks greater than the original. Definitely like these new designs of these type 2 grinders, welders, and drill system. So the welder right here, again, also on these hydraulics, but none of it really moves. But this one has more of a little tip here instead of the 2-prong ones. So the only difference with this one is turning this on, it just turns red, illuminating on these things here. And of course, there's small grid versions of these as well. So small grid on the rover here. You have the drill system on this thing here. I put on a rotor and a converter so that the drill system can sit in the back and get poured through to the survival kit. So that's the drill system. This is the grinder. And this is the welder. So it's basically the same, just on a smaller platform. All right, so what else do you get? We also get animated ore detectors, ore detectors type 2. Spinning things. So this is what it looks like when it's spinning and powered on. Has the platforms, has the panel spinning like that. Got some cables in there, which is pretty cool. A little bit of decals on the panels. Wonder what's inside. And it says made in space. That's awesome. All right, so inside, yeah, it's just more of the spinning stuff. Ooh, we got a little bit of ventilation down here. Yeah, nothing too crazy, but definitely much better than an original ore detector that sits static. This one spins, and this one actually does come in small grid. So a little bit different design where it doesn't have the 3 panels on the side. You got 2 kind of opening up. This looks very futuristic. I actually like this a lot. And it says signal on the bottom, and it's just attached to a Prototech battery. You can ignore that. But yeah, ore detector type 2, big and small. All right, what else do we get? We get these boxes. What are these boxes? These are actually storage bins. So you have storage bin 1, which carries 500 liters. And storage bin stack has 1500 liters. And then you have this one, which is called the pallet, which is 4,000 liters, which isn't too much, but it's a nice little design where it looks like it is very canvas-like and held on by strings or cables and everything like that. So it's pretty interesting. It looks like it's good for storing food and everything like that, but I was hoping that you could create it with a canvas, but it looks like interior plates and construction components all you need. All right, moving on. We got a new item here called the Inset Lantern, which is basically just decoration. It is a circular motion animated thing that has just plants. You would hope this would be like an oxygen farm-like thing, but no. But this thing does look pretty cool. It's just one of those inset decorative items. It has no ports or anything on there, as you see here. A little bit of decals and button panels. It says compressed oxygen in there, but that is about it. So as you see here, that's what it takes to build. Interior plates, construction components, motors, small steel tubes, and glass. Again, doesn't really do anything. It's just decoration. So this is a block that many people may be waiting for, and this is a survival kit. So in some ways, this update is called the Type 2 pack because you have the Type 2 drills, grinder, welder, and also a survival kit. So this survival kit has been updated so much with details. So you have the computer here, buttons, hard drives, a medical kit here, and whatever medical necessities should pop out from here or disposals. I believe it should be disposals, but who knows? And this survival kit has a different port. As you know, your regular survival kit only has a left and right port. This one has a top and bottom. Can we ever get a survival kit with both up and bottom, left and right? I hope one day, but looks like we got 2 different types of survival kits that can be used in different ways now, which kind of helps a lot. And it also does come in a small grid version right over here. And it's going to be similar. You have the top port, which is going to be 2 small ports. And on the bottom should be your big port right over there. Yeah, ignore the Prototech battery that's attached to it. That's not what it's supposed to look like. I just wanted to power it up. But this is your small version survival kit. Medical kit down here. Computer. 2 hard drives instead of 3. And that is your survival kit. So it's more of a vertical survival kit versus your horizontal basic survival kit that we normally get. But definitely a huge upgrade. and we could change some conveyors around and everything like that when it comes to it. All right, so don't forget there is going to be a giveaway, which is going to be Steam key for the Apex Survival DLC pack. So keep staying tuned. Sign up. All right, next up we have something special, which is kind of animated. You see the little butterflies here. This is your inset terrarium forest. So you see here more very forest designs. Ugh, I didn't even realize that there was a snail here like that. And it actually moves ever so slowly. I wonder how long it takes it to reach over there. But anyways, got nice little butterflies here. It's kind of fading. So is it not necessarily real, or is it holograms? I kind of think it's holograms in this case. But as you see here, 2 butterflies and a snail that's ever slowly crawling over. But this is your forest one. And with the forest one comes with a desert one. Now, why is there a butterfly when it comes to the desert? I have no idea. But coming into here, it looks like we got some holographic ants moving around. A cactus, and I think those are just leaves, or is that flies buzzing around? Kind of hard to tell. Kind of look like just leaves coming down, but yeah, it's very hologram-like in this case. And the ants are going through these little bushes. I guess that's their home or anthill or whatever you may call it. But that's your newest items for the DLC pack. And of course, the new addition, it is going to be this corridor door, which is inverted. So originally we had this one, which we could only place in one way because that is not a floor. That is the ceiling. And you could technically only build it this way, where this is the floor and that's the top, and it closes left to right. But of course, smart enough, they created an inverted version of it. So now the door is on this end here with the floor, and that's the top. So we have it inverted for us to create nice little hatch rounded doors. All right, so other than that, we have some new signs. We got warning signs in large grid and small grid, which I kind of flip-flop this, but here's your large grid, here's a small grid, large grid, small grid. So you have mess hall, radioactive, and frost or chill or code. And lastly, we have these things here. So these are things that I've been waiting for, which are conduits or wires, basically. So one of my favorites is this one, which is a broken one where it's sparking. And actually, if you put it higher, it's going to spark a lot. So if I go underneath here, you'll see that it's just dripping with sparks, basically, which is pretty cool. So let's go through them really quickly. So you have your straight conduit. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pipes and wires going through one way. Then you have your damaged one here. As you see, there's different types of wires involved in it. Looks like you may have some copper wires there and some rubber shielding, which is good. You have your junction one, which you can connect through this side, and through here. This one with lights, which works as the junction, where you have this side to connect as well. Then you have a corner junction, which is an L shape, which is cool. And a conduit corner. And this conduit down. So it kind of looks like it's going down that way. And then you have, of course, this conduit up as well. And then you have these conduit transitions. Inverted and regular. And of course, lastly, conduit boxes, which is pretty cool. So the conduit boxes you see here, it says made in space in that box there. You got some electrical warning signs there, and not much here, just buttons. But yeah, these are kind of your electrical boxes, which makes it interesting where you can design a little bit more, especially factory-like stuff. One way of using them is kind of like that we have here, kind of like a power line system. So I kind of double rolled it, so one on top and one on bottom, just to kind of mimic some kind of cables like thing. I would like to have it dangling down instead of having it straight, but this was just kind of just sampling what it could look like if you were to do like a connecting point with these conduits. It looks okay. It's not terrible, but you could have done it with neon tubes too. It would look almost the same. All right, so that's it for all the new blocks and your DLC pack blocks. You also get a whole bunch of new things in terms of items, reading these kind of drops here. So you'll see this barbecue pit has some cooked sabroid meat right over here. You have your mammal meat right here, which you have variations. You have your cooked and your raw, as you see they're a little pink over there. I'm a little disgusted with the raw version of the sabroid insect meat, so that's why they're not here. But that is not cooking here with the fire. It's just all decoration. You also get, as I mentioned before, algae tubes. And then you also get these meal packs. So this is your kelp crisp based on the labeling here, I believe. So each one has its own labels. So this is your steak dinner with the meat on there. Your insect meal or sabroid meal right there. Mushrooms, algae, and also the seed packs. So this is what they look like once you drop it on the ground or so. So we're missing the mushroom here. So you also have the mushroom spores is what we're missing. So we'll just drop that down. So they're all in seed packets basically. And it's very detailed. They actually kind of tell you how to plant it in the instructions there as well, which is pretty interesting. And each of the meal packs has a little bit of description here and a QR code. The only thing is that all of these are kind of the same. So here's your kelp crisp. Clangs, or your calories, where it's supposed to be, is 1286. All these are 1286. So now this becomes a bit of some mystery. What is Clang 1286? Food for thought. Alright, so of course, we also get these things. Anti-radiation medkits. So what do these do? They specialize in medical supplies which prevent and reduce the effects of radiation for a time. If your exposure is bad and it's going to hit close to 75, where you'll start ticking down your health, you want to take one of these things here. You get some radiation protection and it will reduce your exposure. And you have these boxes, which very much look like those storage bins, but these are actually the grain, vegetable, fruits, and mushrooms that you can get. So if you pick that up, they just come in these little boxes for whatever reasons. And if you drop them, you have that. So even if it's one or more, it just drops into these little crates here. Instead of dropping the raw foods, I guess. These are new items, not necessarily blocks. And I believe you can run them over, right? Yes, you can. Didn't expect to fling it that far, but that was amazing. Let me try with this. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. All right. So we are at the end of the update review of the new blocks and items. So other than that, we have a bunch of other things to talk about, or that you may have learned. There's still a lot of things involved. Of course, food and farming, which we talked about through the food processor, algae farm, irrigation system, and the food plots, which is a toggleable thing which you can turn on and off depending on how you want to play. You could also forage for mushrooms, fruits, grain, and vegetables out in the wild. Per tab's a little hard to find, but so when it comes to picking or foraging for things, here's your fruit. So you see here it's a little bit of a lighter shade than your other plants. So here's like a berry bush, but you can't pick this one. So this is your fruit bush in this case. Of course, get close to it, press the action key or F key. You could also use a collector to kind of bulldoze through it and collect it that way too. That definitely works out. And you'll see I grabbed one fruit box from that. And of course, you're going to find grain as well, vegetables, and mushrooms, kind of similar, but of course in different looks to it. But they are slightly lighter in color. And as you see here, it's vegetables. Again, slightly lighter in color. So a little bit hard to see, but definitely findable. You can also find food through mammal meat through wolves and sabroid and insect meat through sabroids. Other than that, NPCs and encounters do hold lootable food items and also unknown signals to hold seeds. And of course, they do have a little bit of Easter egg meal packs as well, which you probably want to consume at your own risk in this way, where some may damage you and some may be perfectly fine. But they're pretty cool names to it, so, and fun little descriptions. So if you find them, good luck. Another very interesting part of Apex Survival is the meaningful death piece to it. You get reduced stats on respawn, which I believe everything's dropped to like 20% or 20 upon death. And you get survival buffs. So the longer you live, the more buffs you get up to level 5. So about every 45 minutes spent alive, you get buff 1. And then buff 2, 3, 4, into 5. Which in terms of health, you get up to 150 health. Movement speed 120%. Oxygen consumption is 50%. 150% on grinding and 150% on welding. So to see that is Shift B. And you'll see here, I'm at level 5 at the moment. So 150% for everything, 120 for movement speed, and 50% on oxygen consumption. So if I perish, everything's left at 20% there, except for oxygen because I'm in per 10, which has a little bit of oxygen. But health is at 25, food's at 20, energy's at 20, oxygen was at 20, hydrogen's at 20. So that is your no-goes in that way. All right, so next thing in terms of environmental hazards, we have radiation, sun radiation. We have also block radiation from uranium or reactors in essence. Other than that, weather hazards, we have sandstorms, hailstorms, caustic rain, and toxic haze, and electric storms. So each one can be found in different planets. I'll leave it up to you guys to figure out which planet they will occur in. Yeah, here's a quick list on screen to see what each thing does. And don't forget, there's new space encounters as well. So kind of like new maydays, new cargo ships out in the space. So of course, being space engineers, if you play in space, you'll see all the new things. And meteors are no longer as devastating as they were before. They're more for aesthetics now. And it no longer breaks voxels or drops any resources for you this time around. They don't directly target your grids or players, but it's a nice little environmental thing to come as you see them drop by or drop down in your environment. But planets with thick atmosphere, Earth like an alien, they kind of block the meteors, so you're not going to see any in those planets. And lastly, they revamped the world settings. So if you had an existing save file, this is what it would look like in the advanced world settings. But if you're starting from anew in star systems, customize, you'll see the options laid out here. So all your regular inventory stuff and speed wise here, floating objects. If you want a lot of floating objects like I do, I usually put 1024. Everything environmental, so weather, lightning damage, sun rotation, radiation, meteor activities, sounds, solar radiation, your survival piece, auto healing, auto respawn. These I normally tick off, and the rest is kind of stays as is. If you want suit only survival, probably take this thing on here. You have your survival buffs and reduced stats on respawn if you want to turn those on. And food consumption, which is new. You have your NPCs. So they just categorized everything as best as they could and fit. So you can easily manipulate all this. Combat, PvP, and then you have miscellaneous. And of course, environmental settings. In-game scripts. Unsafe things, which is always turned on my half. And block limit turned off. So those are normally my settings, but that is the reorganized world settings. So interesting enough, suit only survival with all the settings on may not be possible anymore, but we'll find out one of these days. But if you did notice, the skybox has been updated as well. All right, so before we perish, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below. And as part of the giveaway, I have 3 Steam keys for the Apex Survival Pack. If you were interested in it, first do a comment and then follow the Google form that's in the description. Make sure when you enter the name, it is the same name that's attached to the comment so that I know you commented on the video. And as a bonus, please like and subscribe as well. Best of luck to those who are looking forward to having a free Apex Survival Pack. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.